right. Blue. All right. What's our first blue card? Commons again.
Blue is Slate of Hand. Blue sorcery. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. 1 in your hand and 1 on the bottom.
Yeah. So compare this to Consider or Opt. Do you like this better or worse than those kind of cards? The Scry 1 draw card.
Not being an instant makes it worse for me.
Yes, that. I think so too. The actual effect is better, but the type line is worse. And there's like spell synergies, I guess, but there's not like anything else that this really cares about. And there's minor spell synergies, I should say. So these effects are going to be. That's the other Alex. Hello. These effects are.
Alex, you're invisible right now.
It's all good. These decks are always the kind of where it's just like, okay, if you have a control deck where you just want that consistency, that the ops, the cantrips that are going to make your deck a little more consistent, we've got this instant speed package of counterspells and card draw and bounce and removal. Plays a nice role there. Sorcery makes that quite a bit worse, though. So I think this is going to make your deck sometimes, but I'm just going to give it like a C-.
Okay, I was going to go C for this.
Cool. Next up, we've got Snare Master Sprite. Single blue mana for a 1/1 fairy wizard with flying. So 1 mana, 1/1 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you can pay 2, and when you do, tap target creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it.
Yeah, I've been oscillating a lot on how much I like this thing.
Okay.
From quite a bit to not so much to quite a bit to not so much, and I really have no clue anymore at this point.
I was waiting for the final judgment here. Yeah, so some of the things noted about this card, it's kind of a bridge piece between a fairies deck and a blue-white deck. That's kind of the idea here. I think it's a fairy that taps things down. But just putting this in any blue deck, I don't know. We saw Frost Trickster, right, in Strixhaven, and that card was fine. This is a solid card. It's a 3 mana 2/2 flyer with the tap ability.
It's much smaller than a Frost Trickster.
Right,
it's a 1/1.
Exactly. What I was going to say is that you can play this on turn 1, though, and that makes the card different. Not better or worse necessarily, but just different.
Do you want to play this turn 1 though, and like unless you're immediately suiting it up with a roll on turn 2 or something?
Right, that's kind of the idea, right? I think if you are doing that kind of thing, yes, I think you're going to play this on turn 1 quite a bit in the deck that it goes. Like if you're in a blue-white deck or a blue-green deck, even no, probably not a blue-green deck, but blue-white is the spot I see this the most because you're like, not only do you care about tapping sometimes, but you're just a cheap evasive creature that gets buffed, or it's a vessel to be buffed.
The card I actually like this most, or the deck I should say, is that might be blue-red because it curves so well into what is it? Cut in, cut out, cut in.
It's like a 4 mana deal 4. That one, 4 mana deal 4. Put a roll.
4 mana deal 4. Put a young hero roll on it.
Oh, that's kind of nice, yeah.
So it's insane there, but then it's not a spell and it's just not well statted. So yeah, I'm probably just gonna pick middle of the ground for this and go with like a C. But curious to see what you'd give it.
Yeah, the way I'm gonna think about this card is you want it if you're tapping, you want it if you're fairies, you want it if you're low to the ground aggro buffing evasive creatures, and if you're not doing any of that stuff, I think it's pretty bad because you don't care about the 1/1 flyer in decks that aren't doing that kind of stuff. And I think that, sure, like 3 mana, 1/1 flyer, tap something is not terrible, but I don't think, like, we were talking about how we're losing +1/+1 from Frost Trickster. Because you don't care about the 1/1 for 1 in those kind of decks that aren't caring about those things I just mentioned, you lose on that flexibility or the value the card could bring. So I'm going to say in those decks, it's like a C. And then in decks that don't care about any of that kind of stuff, it's probably a card I just don't want to play.
Okay.
And next up,
we have Aquatic Alchemist. 1 and a blue for a 1/3. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, it gets +2/+0. And it has an adventure. 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Put target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library.
Okay, so we've got. Let's evaluate the creature side first. 2 mana 1/3 that turns into a 3/3 when you cast a spell. Okay, that's gonna be kind of fine in your blue-red tempo decks. And then the bubble up side.
Once per turn, which is unfortunate though.
Yeah, it is gated. It's not like the Festival Crasher from Midnight Hunt where you could really go off, right? And the adventure is not an effect that we like very much. I'm actually surprised it didn't cost like 2 for the adventure. 3 is a lot for just putting something on top. Wow.
And notably, even though other adventure cards do have instants and sorceries to them, you cannot put one of those on top.
Yes, that's right. Because even though you can, it's kind of a weird rules thing, but even though you can cast an instant or sorcerer on the top of your library with Johann, like we were talking about, the creature in any other zone, like, I'm actually going to get the rules a little bit confused here, so I'm not even going to go into it. But yeah, what you said is exactly right. This is not going to do what you want in that way.
So this thing is like not great is my initial take.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give it like D+.
That's my feeling too. One of the things going through the blue cards is, I won't say it's confused, but it definitely, some of the blue cards tend to fight with each other a little more than I think they do sometimes, because there are some like really tempo-y cards and there's some really slower cards that don't really go in a creature, that blue-white tempo-y kind of deck I was just talking about. And this one is more for the more tempo-y decks. So it's gonna be narrow anyways. It's not gonna go on all your blue decks. So I think what did you give it?
I give it a D+.
Yeah, I'm gonna go C-, just slightly higher, because I do think that it can bring the beats if you got the right deck on turn, play us on turn 2. But I'm not that high on it.
Oh, and one thing we didn't do is just maybe a quick summary of, because you talked about the blue decks, and I realized we didn't do a quick summary of white.
Yeah, let's revisit that quickly.
Yeah, I think you'll notice it more when we do the other colors, but whites, commons and uncommons, there's very few Bs, right? And not even that many C+. So I don't think the color's great, but on the flip side of that, when we get to the rares tomorrow, there's a lot of really great white rares. So again, I talked about having intentional design, and I think that's going to make it more interesting to draft. But between white and blue, you'll see the same thing with blue, where I think there's a lot of Ds and low Cs, and that's kind of why I think the white-blue deck isn't really going to be great.
Sweet. Let's go to the next one here. Freeze in place. This is 1 and a blue for sorcery. Tap target creature an opponent controls, then put 3 stun counters on it. Scry 2, not 1. Last time we saw this card, it was Scry 1. And it wasn't great.
Still not that excited about it.
No, I don't think so either. Obviously, it gets contextually gets slightly better because the blue decks in DMU weren't all that much about aggro tempoing unless you were specifically blue-red, and I think that actually it's probably still a little bit true here, where it's like blue-red or blue-white, but bigger spread. I still don't think the card's gonna be that good unless you really, really care about tapping. Like, you have to have a lot of payoffs, like 4 or 5 payoffs, for me to put this card in my blue-white tempo deck, because just this card without those abilities is not a great, it's just not a great card, right? You can think of it as take a creature out of the equation for 3 turns, and that's going to get the job done sometimes, but a lot of times it just doesn't, and you're not happy with the card you have here. So I'm going to give this a D, but I do think, my intuition says I could come up on this one if the set plays out in a certain way, but I'm going to start.
Yeah, I had written down D+. I'm giving out a lot of D+ these days.
Cool. Yeah, me too. At least today. What's up next?
Next is Living Lectern, 1 and a blue for a 0/4 artifact creature, and it has an ability, pay 1 and sack it to draw a card and create a sorcerer roll on one of your creatures.
Yeah, so
only as a sorcerer.
I feel like I've done a lot of talking. You want to start on this one?
Yeah, we're gonna be here all night if we spend
exactly
too long on each card, I guess. But I actually don't hate this card. I think 4 toughness is a lot, and then later on it gets you your card back and a potential celebration trigger. So I think this thing's better than a lot of other O4s have been in previous sets, and I'm probably looking at like a C- for this.
Yeah, I think so. I was actually just gonna give it a C. I think it just does this thing relative. You're pretty happy for what it does, like getting your card back eventually. Like that's the thing about these kind of effects, right? Where it's just like, okay, well, I've got a cheap defender, but then it doesn't do that much in the late game. This kind of solves for that. I heard somebody call this Wall of Omens, and it's definitely not Wall of Omens. Like, you don't get to have your cake and eat it too, but it's got like a little bit of that vibe. So I'm just gonna give it a C to Living Lectern.
Okay.
Next up, Spell Stutter. 1 and a blue for an instant. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 2, plus an additional 1 for each fairy you control.
Yeah, so kind of a callback to Spell Stutter Sprite, which came with a 1/1 instead of a miscalculation. Not a ton of fairies, as we've noticed, although there are apparently some in white that I didn't realize, so maybe it's a blue-white card.
True, yeah, that's kind of funny. Yeah, there's fairies like littering the set in Esper colors, and there might even be a random green fairy or something once in a while. And this is like quench effects, like make disappear. We did see the one in New Phyrexia that wasn't very good, or what's it called? Phyrexia Alda will all be one that wasn't very good. But most of the time, these cards are pretty solid if they have some tangible upside, right? If they can be more than 2 as the game scales. And that's the idea with this, right? You counter something on 2, or on 3, or on 4, most likely. And then by the time your opponent casts their 5 and 6s, on turn 5 and 6, they want to cast a 3-drop, you can still probably counter this because maybe it'll be an actual mana leak, make them pay 3. So I don't think, it's not a high pick or anything, but I do think this is a solid card.
I was going to give this a C.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to put it to. With the, you got to have fairies in your deck, but...
Yeah.
Next up, Stormkeld Prowler. 1 and a blue for a 2/1 human rogue. Whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Stormkeld Prowler.
Yeah, I don't hate this card as much as I maybe should.
That's the exact same thing I was thinking. I read it at first, I'm like, wow, that's terrible. Like, it's just a 2-mana 2/1 for too long, and who knows if you're going to cast a 5-power spell. Even in your deck stat care about that. The game just might be over. But, like, making your 2/1 a 4/3 is kind of nice. I think this is going to be good. I'm sorry, bad. I don't think we should put too much stock or time into it. But I just know that little thought, it's like, that you and me both had, it's like, maybe this is something.
So, are we going to go C-, or do you still think it's in the D range?
Do you want to give it a hot take?
I'm going to give it a C-.
Okay, I was going to say, what's your heart wanting to give it? Because I think that's the grade you should give it. C-?
I'll go with C-.
Okay, I'll join you. We're in sync here. It's a bit of an optimistic C-, but... Next up, we got Water Wings. This is 1 and a blue for an instant. Until end of turn, target creature you control has base power and toughness 4/4, gains flying and hexproof. Till end of turn. Okay, so...
I should just say on that last one that's like specifically in blue-green.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, Water Wings. Yeah, kind of another split card where it's a trick / hexproof.
Mm-hmm.
But doesn't draw a card like some other versions of this have done, so that's a real downside.
There's been a pretty clear distinction between the cards that are like this, that do draw a card or give you a bonus effect or something, and the ones that don't. And it's like really massive. It's kind of funny how one little thing, you can tweak one little thing, it's a lot worse or better. I think that even though this has the flexibility of hexproof, it's still not going to be the level of card that, Metamorphosis or Suit Up or even Dreadful as the Storm is going to be. So I'm going to start this one low. I'm going to start this one at a D, but maybe hexproof ends up being a little better than I'm thinking here.
Yeah, you're never really going to have the hexproof and the trick side be relevant, so it's kind of one or the other, and you're overpaying for both, kind of. So yeah, I agree with you as a D.
Cool. Next up, Diminished Witch, 2 and a blue for a 3/2. It's got Bargain. When it enters the battlefield, if it was bargained, you create a cursed roll token, attach that to an opponent's creature, and that's the one that makes it a 1/1.
So I just said how we have to scale back on how much we're talking about each card, and now we finally got to the crystal cards, and there's so many things I want to say.
Well,
Alex.
The nice thing is I think there's another card that's even kind of similar to this, so your thoughts here can play double duty. So go ahead. Yeah, we got some time.
Yeah, so making something into a 1/1, it doesn't remove any abilities.
Right.
So right away, that's already kind of a bit of a red flag, right? Like if they're hitting you with a flyer, this isn't going to save you. If they have something that's got like an activated ability, it's not going to protect you. There's a lot of, if they have a roll on it, it's still going to be a 2/2. So there's a lot of downsides there, right?
Yep.
That being said, one thing I haven't seen a single person mention in any of your, Discord chats or anywhere online is the potential to play this post-combat.
Yep, that's really cool.
So if you attack with your rat and, they have a 2/2, a 3/3, a 4/4, whatever they decide to block with, you can just kill it.
Yep. And those kind of effects they tend to be not fantastic. You're like 4 mana 3/3 comes in, kills a creature that was already dealt damage. But when it's modal like this is, I think you can have what you just said as a real talking point, like a real point towards the card being, good. So, great on Diminished Wish, unless you have more to say about it.
Well, the other just thing to note is that specifically in blue, like any blue card with Bargain gets a bit of a bump because of the card I'm suddenly blanking the name on, but Hatching Plans.
I was actually going to say something else, but Hatching Plans is a better example. But Hatching Plans being the sack a disenchantment, draw 3. Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of like this. Like it's usually going to be your opponent won't really be able to attack past it as long as you can bargain, right? Like because whatever they have that's bigger than this just gets frogified or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, it's kind of a funky one because the thing is, it is quite bad if you don't bargain it.
I like this one less. There's an adventure one coming up that I think's better, but
okay.
I don't hate this card.
You want to give it a C?
Yeah, sure. Let's give it a C.
Let's give it a C.
I think it's gonna have worse stats because I do think that cards like this are pretty tricky to get to their maximum benefit.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's a finicky card. Actually, I think a lot of cards in this set are kind of like that. Like kind of finicky, a lot of decisions to be made. Like where are you putting your roll? Where when are you casting your adventure? So yeah, this is a complex set as far as how the cards actually play. Next up, we've got Ice Out. This is kind of it's a cancel variant. 1 blue for an instant bargain, and if you bargain it, it's just counterspell. Blue.
And if you don't bargain it, it's still a counterspell, but it's a cancel.
Yeah. Cancel, counterspell, yeah. Cancel is a counterspell, but counterspell is not a cancel. Yeah. So yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, like the time when you want this to cast 2 is on turn 2, and that's not when you're going to be able to bargain
exactly, right.
So not huge about this.
Yeah, you're not bargaining this too much. It's going to come up sometimes. You're like, oh, cool, I can actually double spell here, but how often are you going to want to actually bargain it and sack a real thing, right? This is one of the bargain costs that it's going to be incidental. You're like, oh, okay, like it just happens to be good here. You're not going to go out of your way to try to bargain this.
Yeah, it is nice. Similar to in DMU when you had Essence Scatter / Impulse Up. Yeah. It is nice that in a few cards we're going to see the Divination, and so leaving 3 up lets you either draw cards or counterspell.
Mm-hmm.
But I still have this as like a C.
Yeah, I was going to go even C- on it, to be honest. So.
Okay.
All right, what do we have next?
Next we have Merfolk Coralsmith. 2 and a blue for a 2/3. It has the ability to pay 1 mana to give it +1/-1 until end of turn. And when it dies, scry 2.
I don't mind this. I don't love it, but I don't mind it. It can trade up with a good amount of stuff or bash in for 4. And then obviously the kind of play pattern here is you're going to pump it, make it trade, and it dies, you get a little bit of a bonus. And scry 2 is not bad. Like that's substantial. I think this is just
if you really need to scry 2, you can just pay 3 mana.
Yeah, exactly. You can just kill it. That's true. Yeah, I think this is like a C-. You're never going to be thrilled. It's fine filler, filler minus potentially.
Okay, I wrote D+ for myself.
That's fine, yeah. Yeah, strictly better Watercourser, which is a card that wasn't even that good in 2015. All right, Mocking Sprite is nice. 2 and a blue. Or next, I'm not going to give a grade just yet. Mocking Sprite, 2 and a blue for a 2/1 flyer. And it says, instants and sorceries you cast cost 1 less to cast. It's a fairy.
Yeah, so it kind of goes in the fairies deck, kind of goes in the blue-red deck, but doesn't do anything particularly well.
Yeah, like this effect is worse than it looks a lot of the time. Like you're like, oh, cool, like it's sort of mana ramping me, and sure, but the body's not good. Like the 3 mana 2/1 flyer is not a good stat line, especially in a set with a bunch of X1 hate. Yeah, I'm actually gonna take a kind of a bit of a harsh stance on this one. I'm actually just gonna give it a D. I think this is not a card you should play very often. If honestly, there might not be a deck where you're like happy to play it ever. I really just want to put a lot of emphasis on that 3 mana 2/1 body because that's really bad, even with flying.
Yeah. I was gonna write D+, but you know what? I think I'll just join you.
Awesome, cool, easy. Here's a cool one. Quick Study. 2 and a blue. Draw 2 cards, but wait, it's an instant.
They finally did it, Alex. They finally made Divination an instant.
Yeah, I like this. This is solid.
It's not as amazing as it would have been when, Divination was sweeping the tables back in the day, but
making constructed decks.
Yeah, in some cases. But this is still a good card. Like instant is just so much better than sorcery.
It's a pretty large upgrade. So, C+, C. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll go. Well, are you ever cutting these? I don't think so. I think I'll go C+.
Okay, yeah, fair. Child wants to give it an S+, which I wouldn't object to either. But next up, Johann's Stopgap, 3 and a blue for a sorcery. It's got bargain. If it was bargained, it costs 2 less. So 2 mana if it was bargained, 4 mana if not. The ability or the effect is return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Draw a card.
So normally cards like this have been quite good,
Yeah.
the Tolarian Geyser type of effect. What are you thinking on this?
I am a lover of these cards, and I'm somebody who is like, don't underrate these kind of effects. Even sorcery speed versions are quite good. I think this one might be just on the side of just fall on the side of I don't think it's just generically a solid card to put in your deck. So it's not an instant, which is a knock against it. A lot of these cards are. It's also not that cheap unless you bargain it, which a lot of these Tolarian Geyser style effects that makes that kind of good. I think unless you have actively good sacrifice fodder, it's not just you sometimes you bargain this thing. I think you want to be in a deck that is bargaining, maybe with hatching plans. Once again, I think it's a playable card. You could put this in your deck. It's going to be like a C- or something, but it's just not going to be the C- or C+. Tolarian Geyser, I would have given it a B by the end of the format, right? Maybe even B+. This isn't in that neighborhood. I'm going to give it a C because there are decks and times when it's going to play out really, really well. It's going to be a lot that aren't. That's not the case, though.
Yeah, I thought I was going to trap you again. We've had very few 2 micrograde plus disagreements this set.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty down on this too because there's also just nothing to bounce. Everything has an ETB or an adventure. There's nothing you're happy about bouncing.
There's no big tokens, really. I guess you can knock off a roll on a creature. That's kind of nice. But I'm gonna give it a C. I don't think we have to talk about too much more. You want to go up any higher or lower?
I'm gonna go C-.
Cool. Let's do it. What's up next?
Next is a very kind of similar card. 3 and a blue for an instant. Target creature's owner puts it top or bottom. So it's kind of another bounce spell-ish.
Yeah, Run Out of Town from Streets of New Capenna. Or, Isolation at Orthanc, but it's worse than Isolation at Orthanc. And this card is fine. It's always been just okay. This version of this effect, I think I'm just going to give it a C. You're not sad about it. You're not thrilled about playing multiples or anything. It's just fine.
Yep, I'm with you there.
Cool. Next up, we got Vantress Transmuter. This is 3 and a blue for a human wizard. It's an adventure creature. The creature side is a vanilla 3/4. I said it this time.
Thank you.
It's a 4 mana 3/4 vanilla. The sorcery side, Croaking Curse. I bet you can guess what it does. 1 and a blue, tap target creature, put a cursed roll token attached to it.
Yeah, so we talked about this a bit earlier, how there was a curse card that's an adventure, and this is it. And I think this card's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. So this solves a lot of the problems that, the Frogify effect kind of usually has, where it's okay, it's just, number one, this comes with the creature. Obviously, you're paying mana for it, but it's an upgrade, I believe. But also, they don't work on attacks, right? You Frogify their thing, it's okay, I get a chump block. And that's meaningful. This doesn't do that. This actually taps the creature. That's what I really like about this card.
Yeah, and it triggers the tap stuff for your blue deck, or your blue-white deck, maybe.
Yeah. I'm not going to be too high on this, but I almost wonder if it is actually quite good. Maybe this is a C+, B- level card.
I wouldn't go as high as a
Yeah.
B. I don't think it cracks the B level for me.
Totally. I'm just flirting with the idea. I think it's got enough going for it that I could see it. Yeah, I'm going to give it a C+, though. I'm going to go optimistic C+ on Vantress Transmuter.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah, I still agree with you.
Into the Fate Court is next. 3 blue for a sorcery. Draw 3 cards and make a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying, but it can't block. It can only block creatures with flying.
Yeah, there's so many different types of tokens in this set. There's 1/1 mice, there's 1/1 rats, there's 2/2 knights, there's 1/1 fairies, there's 3/3 something or other. There's tons of different types of tokens, but luckily Arena does that all for us.
Yeah, not when you mean you draft though. We have to actually get together. By the way, Mark, when for those who don't know, I draft at Mark's place sometimes with some really good Toronto players. Mark makes it a delightful experience because he's just got a giant stack of tokens that people don't have to use a piece of paper or a coin or something. So kudos to you for that. We're gonna have to do some of that. And this card, if this card made a fairy that just could block, it would be busted. It would be Muldrifter plus, well, not plus, but plus or minus in some spots, it'll be very, very good. Without that, though, I still think it's okay. Like, I still think it's a solid card, yeah.
I still like this. It's CMC 5 for that blue-green deck, maybe, and like Lorien Revealed was a very powerful card. Obviously, it doesn't have Island Cycling, but draw 3 gets you pretty far ahead.
Yeah, it's like up 3 cards and a little bit of a thing you can sacrifice or maybe peck in. Yeah, I do think that the difference between the good versions of good draw 3s and bad draw 3s tends to be you can do something with it early in the game, right? Like Lorien Revealed. Like, there's another one that is escaping me. I was thinking about it when I was looking at this card. And so I don't think you can give it too high of a grade. I'm going to give it a C. I think it's going to be solid.
Because there's definitely spots where I'm going to cut this.
Okay,
so it doesn't make C+ for sure.
What do we have next?
Next is Obira's Attendants, 4 and a blue for a 3/4 flying fairy wizard, and it has an adventure instant to give target creature -4/-0 until end of turn.
Okay. Do you like this one?
I do. I think these are the last card and like the next two are all reasons why I think blue-green might not be the 10th best color pair.
Right, because adventures kind of bridge that gap. Yeah, I think that all these blue adventure creatures have been pretty strong just in general, and maybe that's intentional, like you said, for the blue green deck. But I think Obira's Attendant, kind of hard to say, is good. Yeah, I'm a fan of this one.
You talked about Guiding Voice, and my complaint was that it drew you a 3/3 that does nothing.
Right.
This is Arcane Subtraction, except it actually draws you a card that you want.
That you care about,
flying makes a big difference on a card like this.
Yeah, the 5-mana 3/4 flyer slot is always like, sometimes it's right in the middle, right? Sometimes it's just below a card you're happy with, sometimes it's just above a card you're happy with. We'll see, but I do think that the instant side of this, the adventure, really pushes it to, I'm pretty confident it's going to be on the side of you're going to want this. So I'm going to give this a C+. I think it's another card you're very rarely going to cut from your blue decks.
I had already written down C+ for myself.
Next up, Balluna's Gatekeeper. This is 5 and a blue for a giant soldier. And it's another vanilla. It's a 6 mana, 6/5. And the sorcery side of the adventure card here, entry denied, 1 and a blue. Return target creature you don't control with mana value 3 or less to its owner's hand.
Yes, we talked about how bounce, I said, was a little worse than usual, but the fact that this is kind of free and draws you like a card you kind of like, it extends the game early on, and then it draws you a card that's going to help you in that extended game.
It's also kind of massive. Like 6/5 is big.
Yeah, it's huge, and it can bounce. We can bounce night tokens, and even bouncing a rat isn't like horrible with this.
Yeah, this is another good one. I think this is just another C+.
I'm gonna give this a C.
C? Okay, cool. Yeah. These blue adventures, I really like these.
Yeah.
Next up, we got some uncommons. Start us off with Bitter Chill. What's Bitter Chill doing?
Bitter Chill is 1 and a blue for an aura. When it enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. It doesn't untap during its untap step. And when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay 1. If you do, scry 1 and draw a card.
Have they fixed it? Is this the card we've been asking for all along? Is this finally an actual good aura removal spell?
Yeah, this looks pretty nice.
Yeah. So you're paying 2 mana to do the thing you're hoping to do. Tap down a creature, remove it from the equation of the game. Obviously, there's some creatures with activated and or static abilities, but we'll overlook that for now. And there's not really a way around this Bitter Chill effect, right? Like, it's not like, oh, when the creature dies, you get to pay 1. No, it's when it goes to the graveyard. So effectively, when it gets knocked off, right? When they bounce it, blink it, whatever. And that's a really meaningful upgrade. So I'm going to be pretty high on this one. And not to mention it's got the tap synergies too, and enchantment synergies for what you want. I'm going to go B.
Okay, I had written down B- just because I still think like you're not going to just want to leave 1 mana open all the time for this. And so if your opponent is trying to do something, they'll just wait till you to be tapped out, I think.
Great point.
But still good and good with bargain as well.
Next up, another old favorite, Disdainful Stroke. 1 and a blue for an instant. Counter target spell with mana value 4 or greater. It's an uncommon now, which might speak to the fact that this is not a card you're going to play all that often, but it also could be the fact that this is an adventure set, and this card plays pretty nicely against adventures, expensive ones, because you can see it coming. Yeah, I think this is a good card you're going to play.
I feel like I've been tricked. Like, if this was a common, I think I would play it less than I will just seeing that like silver symbol in the corner there.
Yeah.
Does that, do you know what I mean? Like,
No,
it's a weird thing
yeah.
to say.
Well, to me, some of that is, sometimes you just overvalue the card because it's it's got a gold rarity symbol. But sometimes it is a point towards what they're going for design wise, right? Like this might have been bumped up to uncommon for certain reasons.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a common, my claim of blue-green not being unplayable would be way off.
Yeah, that would be pretty funny. So what do you want?
I don't think I'm gonna play every one of these because I do think the set's fairly aggressive. So I think I'm gonna go C on this.
Yeah, I would say C as well. I was kind of oscillating between like C, C minus, but C seems fine. Okay, next we've got Gadwick's First Duel. This is a saga. And not the first, this isn't the first saga we've seen, but I should actually, I wish I mentioned this in the first time we saw a saga. Sagas are another way you can get an enchantment to go to the graveyard, right? For the cards that care about that. So Gadwick's First Duel, 1 in a blue, 3 trappers. First trapper, create a cursed roll token, attach up to 1 target creature. So basically you get to cast this, and if there's no creature, that's okay. Chapter 2, scry 2, okay. Chapter 3. Whenever you cast your next instant or sorcery with mana value 3 or less this turn, you copy that spell. You can choose new targets if you'd like.
Yeah, another thing to mention about sagas that wasn't relevant for the last one is you can bargain them with the 3rd chapter on the stack.
Yes, definitely.
So if you draw your bargain spell and then that trigger goes off, then you can still do it. But the white one, you wanted to avoid the 3rd chapter, so that wasn't really relevant.
Yep.
This one, I almost feel like this needs a build-around grade because you really need to hit that 3rd chapter for it to be playable.
Definitely, yeah. Just making a how you don't. Oh yeah. Because I was gonna say Frogify Scry 2. Is that enough of an upgrade? But no, it's not actually Frogify because it keeps their abilities. So yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right about the build-around aspect. I was thinking this is maybe just like passable because I would almost say sorry to keep going back and forth. I almost want to say most blue decks will have enough stuff, but you have to be on the lookout for the times when you don't, right? So it's almost like an inverse of a build around in some ways.
It doesn't work with like counter spells. So spells CMC 4 or more. So I do think you need enough things that you want to just generically copy.
This is true. I don't know. I'm a little higher. I think I might be a little higher on this card than it sounds you are, but maybe just, again, Magic player semantics.
Well, let's. I've written down my grade already,
okay.
So why don't you just tell me your grade, and I'll tell you how different it is.
I was going to give it a C+.
Okay, I was going to give it a C.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, we're only a little bit off. We're not that far off. I do think your point stands, definitely. Be aware. You have to have somewhere in the neighborhood of, again, like that magic number of 7, 8, 9-ish things to consistently trigger the last ability, but I don't think it's going to be that difficult in your blue decks. What's up next?
Next is Picklock Prankster, 1 in a blue for a 1/3 flying vigilance, and the adventure side is an instant. Mill 4 cards, then put an instant, sorcery, or fairy card from among the milled cards into your hand.
It's kind of nice. You're going to hit a good amount of the time in your blue and or fairy decks. And then the 1/3 Vigilance Flyer, that's an okay body.
Yeah, a lot of the times with these, look at the top 4 and get a certain type cards, you need them to be hitting, 90% to be good. And I don't think you need that high of a hit rate for this card to be good.
Right, because it's not just a way. It's not like, what was that card from the green? Seed of Hope, right? It's not like Seed of Hope, where if you miss on Seed of Hope, it's a disaster. If you miss on this, you spend 2 mana, and it didn't do anything. Maybe you even have some graveyard synergies, right? So, this is a really good version of this effect. And it's great that installment plans is great on this kind of ability. So I would probably just give this a B. I think this is a really strong card.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna join you on a B.
Great. Next up, we got Ice Rod Sentry. Cool art. I really like the icy art in this set. It's 3 mana, 2 in a blue for a 2/3 Vigilance, Elemental Soldier. Whenever it attacks, you may pay 1 in a blue. If you do, tap target creature an opponent controls. Whenever you tap an untapped creature an opponent controls, Ice Rod Sentry gets +2/+1 until end of turn. So it becomes a 4/4.
So it's just the Canadian in you that likes the ice.
Maybe, I don't know. Do
Reminds me of home.
you not have the same affinity? I like winter
It looks
things.
cold.
It looks cold, he said, yeah.
Yeah, this card is again, the payoffs for blue-white just aren't like broken, and the commons aren't that good, and I don't know.
So-
I'm not like that excited about this thing, although I do think it's pretty good.
I do like the fact that you play this on turn 3 as it's slightly below rate for what you'd want. And then you can like do something else that taps something. You don't have to pay the 2 mana. Like imagine you play the gold uncommon, right? You tap down the 4 mana 2/3 that taps down something, draws a card. You play this into that. This attacks for 4. That's pretty nice. You're not going to be activating the ability on curve, right? Very, very rarely are you going to go turn 4 activate. I mean, if you have a 2-drop and nothing else, sure. But this is like a later game ability, or it's an ability that is very synergistic in your deck because you're just triggering it naturally. The +2/+1 that is.
I just don't see how blue and white aren't on the back foot by turn 3. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
other colors get on the board so much faster, and then all these tap things are just like, this card's so bad on defense.
And I want to clarify a little bit for the listeners, because you said blue and white are going to be behind on board, and that sounds kind of counterintuitive considering we've seen a lot of cheap blue-white things. It's not that you're not going to have things to play, it's that they're slightly understated, so you're going to slowly fall behind. Their 3/3s are going to be able to attack into you, and on curve, you're not going to be able to block, right? That's kind of the idea between slightly behind. So
What do you want to give this thing?
Oh, yeah, we
Okay,
just
I'll go.
twins.
I'm gonna go
Wait, 3, 2, 1.
C.
C. Yay! Great. C for Ice Rod Sentry. Next up,
Okay.
we've got Succumb to the Cold. This is 2 and a blue for an instant. Tap 1 or 2 target creatures and opponent controls. Put a stun counter on each of them.
Yeah, again, like it's I didn't even like the one that had Convoke from Marching Machines, so
Wicked Slumber.
I'm not that high on this.
Yeah. It's like... It's kind of unfortunate because I think this card looks... A lot of these cards, these tap effects, I think look sort of appealing-ish. So I was saying how blue-white looks like a good deck if you got all the pieces, but I think some people are going to snipe them from you, whether they should or not, basically, because I think this is the kind of card that people are like a little bit happier to put in their deck than I would be. And I think you're right. I think it's just, unless you're the blue-white deck, or it's playable in like a blue X tempo deck, like blue-red spells, but it's not going to be a high priority for either of those decks. So I'm going to just say, like, in the places you want it, it's going to be like a C-.
C-. I just went as low as D.
Sure, yeah, that's fine too. Next up, we've got Tenacious Tome Seeker. This is 2 and a blue for a 3/2 human knight. It's got Bargain, and it says when it enters the battlefield, if it was Bargain, you return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand.
This is what you want your bargain cards to look like.
Yeah, this is a nice one.
Yeah.
Better than the curse making one, right? You'd say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the fact that like you're exchanging some material, some enchantment you've played for an actual card on a okay body, right? It's not exciting, but it's 3 mana 3/2. It's totally passable. That's quite strong. So this is one of the better blue cards we've seen.
I was gonna say like B- for this.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna give it to. B- for the Tome Seeker. What do we have next?
And we're so boring this set.
I know, where there's no arguments. The people are like, I'm gonna go listen to a content creator who they argue more. Yeah, I remember for a long period when Luis first joined Limited Resources, people on Reddit and Twitter were like, I don't like this Luis guy. He doesn't argue with Marshall enough. Like that's what people are really looking for from their content. Yeah, so we gotta bump that up a little bit. What do you think of this next one?
Oh, we got Chancellor of Tails, 3 and a blue for a 2/3 flying fairy. And it's also an advisor, but it's not relevant. Whenever you cast an adventure spell, you may copy it, and you may choose new targets for the copy.
Oh, this is such a high ceiling, but such a low floor. Wowie. So it's the dreaded Mirkwood bat stats, right? The 4 mana 2/3 flyer that I once again really want to emphasize is not good. You shouldn't be happy about that. You'd be quite sad about that. But if you make if this thing makes mana for you and draws you free cards essentially, which is what you're doing, you're copying adventure, it's pretty good. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, bats like doing the thing was like maybe your opponent loses 3 or 4 life,
Yeah.
but this is you're getting like 1 or 2 cards.
it's so
better
tough.
than life.
So I think on average, this card's not actually gonna have like a very high win rate because there's some cards that are bad or medium, I should say, that are medium because they always do a medium thing. There are some cards though that are medium and like game in hand win rate on 17 lands because sometimes they're awesome and sometimes they're bad. This is one of those kind of cards. So basically, I think if you can get on board early enough where you playing a 4-mana 2/3 flyer is not completely damning to you. Like, you really have to be confident your early stuff blocks well. It's a playable card. But even in that kind of deck, you're going to have those games where either you have to block on turn 4, or your opponent just for 2 mana kills this. And that's always going to be a downside of these kind of cards. So
yeah, and it's not like you even get the creature side of the adventure. Like, you only get the spell bonus, which is often an understated spell, like a overcosted spell, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have it at D+. Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I was going to say too. Yeah, I think it's a really enticing, appealing card, but I do think more times than not, it's just not going to be a good card.
Yep.
Yeah. Next up, maybe to save some more thoughts, Galvanic Giant. This is a Hill Giant. It's a 4-mana 3/3, 3 and a blue for a 3/3. It's an adventure. It's a giant wizard. The creature says, whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, tap target creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. The adventure side is a 7-mana spell, Storm Reading, 5 blue instant. Draw 4 cards, but then discard 2 cards.
Yeah, so if you don't have to block with this right away, it's pretty threatening.
Yeah, because if you can just untap with this and go 4, 5, and just make it so that your opponent's creatures just are gone for a few turns, essentially, it's good. But it's a lot of hoops to jump through, right? You're paying a 4 mana for a 3/3. You have to have those expensive spells.
Yeah.
I think I'm mostly out on this card too.
I was gonna go C-.
Yeah, I was gonna go D+. I just think it's just like the 7-mana mode's really expensive. The 4-mana mode is occasionally good. Sometimes it's the same thing as the fairy, where sometimes it's going to be great, sometimes not going to be very good. I think this is actually, like, compared this to the last card we just saw, I think the upside on that is, like, I'm willing to take that risk more than I'm willing to take this risk, I think.
Well, they both kind of catch you up on going behind on tempo a little bit the next turn.
Yeah.
As long as you have the thing that it requires. And this one has the benefit of the adventure side. And, like, the adventure is +2 cards plus this card, so it's like it's kind of like +3 cards.
Yeah.
So that's why I have this higher.
All right, yeah, that's fair. I'm gonna say I'm sticking my D+, but we'll definitely see. Sure. We've got Splashy Spellcaster, 3 and a blue for a 2/4 uncommon elemental wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a sorcerer role token, attach it up to one other target creature you control, and that's the one that scries. And gives plus 1.
Yeah, so blue has this whole theme of, like, please let me untap.
Yes, really, that's super true. Because if you untap with this, oh man. If you don't, it's a 2/4. That is no GB,
I actually just noticed that this is other. I thought it could target itself. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, even a little bit worse, especially because your blue decks tend to be slightly creature lighter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's significantly worse, actually.
Yeah, I'm also kind of unimpressed with this. I think even when you untap and do the thing, it's not like, oh man, it's good, but it's not, you're not going off. So I'm going to give this on a D+ as well.
All right.
Yeah, maybe C, maybe the 4 toughness, or sorry, C-. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I'll join you on D+.
Okay.
I'm just so, I was okay on this card until I read that word other.
Yeah, other is big there, for sure. What's up next?
We have our last blue uncommon, Archive Dragon, 4 blue for a 4/6 dragon wizard with flying. It has Ward 2, and when it enters the battlefield, scry 2.
Seems a little, like, corset-y. In a way, it's not like doing anything that particularly cares about the set or whatever. I think this card's pretty good, though. Like, it's not...
Yeah, I was going to say not in a bad way.
Yeah, no, definitely. Ward 2 fixes the problems of a giant creature that has no ETB, right? Because at least if they kill it, they're spending virtually their whole turn. And it kind of does have... It
does have an ETB.
It doesn't have... Yeah, that's true. It does have an ETB. It scries too. I
want to say somewhere between C and C plus.
Yeah, I was gonna give it a C plus, and then I'm like, wait, am I being boomer checked here? Like,
Yeah, it's like a 6 drop.
Right,
Doesn't
yeah.
really catch you up.
I'll keep
right,
it at C. Yeah, I think I'll keep it at C.
Yeah,
That's
let's be a responsible C here.
All right, we're gonna take a little bit of a break because that's the end of blue.
Let's
Oh, sure.
do a quick summary on blue.
Yeah, let me.
Just like a minute. Yeah.
Okay, so let's as we finish up blue as the last blue card, what's your thought on blue as a color?
So also, again, we talked about this being compared to the other 3 colors, but also a little underpowered. Like not a lot of Bs and C pluses,
Yeah.
although slightly more than white. I think in terms of commons and uncommons, I have like white at the bottom and then blue just above it. But the rares do change that, so we'll see. And out of all the blue pairs, I think like blue red, and then maybe even after that blue green might be
Ooh.
the ones I'm excited about the most.
Yeah, definitely. As we're going through this a little more and seeing, just as we're chatting about it, I think I will join you on blue-green won't be terrible. Not guaranteeing it's good, but the adventures really do add a lot to that kind of strategy where it usually fails, it maybe not failing as much. Moving us on.